Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's webinar, which is all about how to turn off negative self-talk and achieve greater business results. So if you have just joining me now, come in, pop into the chat, say hello if you're happy to say you're here. Let me know where you are in the world. And hopefully you will have all just seen the poll that I asked you to take as well, asking whether you were here for yourself out of your own interest or whether you were here from an organizational perspective or maybe both. Very, very delighted to have you here. Hello to Natalia, nice to see you. So let me know if you're willing to connect with other people as well, because this is a great opportunity to network and grow the people that you know in your network across LinkedIn and other areas. Hi, Jay, lovely to see you. Great, keep popping in, say hi. Let me know where you are in the world. I am in the UK. I live just outside of London. I'm actually quite a long way outside London, about 45 miles away, in a little sleepy village called Chiddingfold, which no one will ever have heard of. But whereabouts are you in the world? I know we've got people calling from all over the place. Oh, hi. We've got Siva from Malaysia. Hello, Chris, calling from Basel. Lovely to see you. Got people calling from Turkey. You've got people from London, Ukraine. We have gone global, people. This is fabulous. Okay, so keep those coming. Oh, someone's in California. Nice, very nice, very nice. Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Steve is in Devon. Loads of people coming in. It's fabulous to have you all here. Thank you for joining me. So just as people are coming in, we will just, Jack, I have some help behind the screens. Jack, I'm not asking you to say hello, but thank you very much. Just want to get that live. That is great. So for those of you who have never met me before, welcome, welcome. For those of you who never met me before, my name is Sarah Farmer. I am the founder of EMR Consulting, and I am an executive coach. I work across the globe with leaders, senior leaders and executives, helping them develop the mindset and the skills that allow them to exceed their own expectations, usually. And it is, I'm very lucky. I have one of the best jobs in the world, I think. Today, we're going to be looking at what is this negative chatter? Why do we have it? What's going on? What's the impact of it? Is there a solution? I'll let you into a secret, there is. And what the next steps are. If you want more help with this, then I will give you some opportunities to do that as well. So a few more people coming in from Colombia, from Singapore. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so just while we're letting some more people come in, a little bit more about me before I move on. I specialize in imposter syndrome, anything mindset related, and leadership development. And I've also just written my first book, which will be out at the end of January, beginning of February next year, which is all about the topic that we're talking about today and some. So I look forward to sharing more news about that as it comes in. Hello from Houston. Hello, hello. Some of the organizations that I've worked with over the last few years are on your screen now, just to get an idea of where I work. People often say to me, do you work with a particular sector? Nope, I work with brains. I work with humans who have brains. That's what I do. So it doesn't matter what sector you're in. If you are interested in growing and developing professionally, then I will be able to help you with that if that's something you want to do. I work with people one-to-one, and I also work with people in groups. So the people that I'm working with one-to-one, obviously you won't see represented in the organizations here. But okay. Enough about me. Let's talk about you guys. So you are here today to learn about how to turn this negative self-talk off. I'd really like to make this a little bit interactive. It's a webinar. Normally I'm doing these on Zoom and I can see people, but we can't do that today. But I want you to make sure you take something from today, not just learning about it, but something you can do. To do that, what I'd like you to do is make sure you've got somewhere you can write, just a piece of paper and pen, or, if you're old school like me, or maybe you have an iPad. And just capture, if you're one of the people that's here because you are impacted by negative self-talk, just capture 1, 2, or maybe 3 things that you say to yourself. For those of you who aren't sure or are here because you want to learn about it for an organization and how we can help improve confidence within an organization, the sort of things people are feeling are, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be here, why will people listen to me? I'm not going to get that job. I couldn't ask that client for this business. I couldn't ask for a pay rise, all of these things that are effectively stopping us from getting the things that we really want and really deserve. One of them that's also really quite common is people coming to me and saying, look, I want to leave, but I can't. Now, I'm not being treated well within my organization. Maybe their manager or their boss isn't they're not gelling, for want of a better word. And they don't feel able to leave because they feel they're not good enough. They won't get another job. So they feel stuck. It does keep you stuck. Now, the thing is, the reason this is happening is it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's happening as a response to something, and these thoughts are to keep you safe. So your brain's doing what it should do, but unfortunately the thinking is actually flawed and you're putting yourself into a threat state. Now, for some people, this happens 20, 30, 40 times a day. And I'm going to ask you to do something in a little while, which will help you understand how often it's impacting you. For some people, it's not very often at all, and it isn't a big problem, and that's great. It's just normal human behavior. And let's not forget, we are normal humans. So occasionally we're going to feel a little bit worried about something. You know, would it be true to say that I wasn't a little bit nervous coming onto a webinar today? Of course I was. I'm human, but it doesn't mean I don't do it and I won't do it and I'm not going to enjoy it. But there's a normal level and then there's an abnormal level. And if we're at an abnormal level where it's getting in our way, we're in a threat state more than we want to be. That's releasing chemicals into our bodies, which raises our tension, it raises our anxiety, it has an impact on our health, and it slows us down. Okay, so it's not a good thing to have this. And I know for most of you who do experience this, you just want to turn it off. Or maybe you just want to turn down the volume occasionally. Just so you know, I'm going to take questions throughout the webinar. So if you have any questions, do pop them in the chat. I may not respond to them straight away. I may hold them to the very end, but don't worry, I will come back to them if I can do. And if I haven't got back to them today, I will come back to you and answer them directly via LinkedIn or wherever you've come through. I also have my colleague and partner in crime, Lorraine Issott, who is in the background as well, and she will be answering questions if you've got anything you need to know from an operations point of view. She's behind the scenes. We're popping up links and things to use shortly as well. Anyway, back to the brain. So you are in a threat state, and the thing is, it is a flawed way of thinking. It's helpful and it's unhelpful. Something is stimulating your response, and for those of you who have ever read about the chimp paradox from Professor Stephen Peters, you will know about the limbic brain, the emotional center in your brain. He describes it as the chimp. It's there. Its one job is to keep you safe and alive. So if anything is going to puts you into a threat state, it sees that as a threat to life and it shuts you down. So I want to ask for a salary rise. Shut me down. I won't ask for it because I'd never get it anyway. I've just saved myself from the embarrassment of not getting it. I've also saved myself from not getting the pay rise, which isn't good. So there's a flaw in between the stimulus and the response. And that flaw is coming from our own minds. So what creates our mindset is the experiences that we've had from the day that we're born. We make perceptions on those experiences and they turn into our beliefs. So they turn into hardwired network of information in your supercomputer in your brain. And every time your mind gets triggered by an event, it goes looking for the beliefs that it recognizes and picks them up really, really quickly and makes a decision like that without checking them for reality. That mindset then drives your actions, which drives your results. Okay. So really important first thing to learn is your mindset is driving your actions, which is driving your results. And the mindset is often flawed and you're telling yourself fibs. And you know that rationally, but unfortunately, the limbic brain is 5 times stronger than your rational brain. It kicks in first, and that is often enough to stop us from taking the plunge in what we want to do. Here's the other thing is that most of our thinking is not done consciously. So our unconscious, our pre-conscious and our unconscious mind is running amok. And we're constantly going to look for information and we're making up our mind with something without even thinking about it. If we can turn some of that unconscious thought into conscious thought, which is part of the process to solve this problem, you can start to be more active in what you're thinking about. But I'll explain more about how that works in a minute. But the truth is that if we were consciously aware of everything we were thinking, our mind would blow. All right, it'd be too much going on. I'm going to ask you a question, a bit of a quiz for you. In 7 seconds, how many bits of information do you think go through your brain? I'll let you know it's in the thousands, but how many thousands? Have a go. Let me know what you think. How many thoughts go through our brain in just 7 seconds? Let's see what comes up in a minute. All right, so there's unconscious and subconscious and conscious thinking to take into consideration. Now, you may have heard people say, well, if you're not feeling great, all you got to do is just snap your fingers, count back from 5, and boom, you'll be off. Great. Yeah, I can do that on some things, and I'm sure lots of you can. But unfortunately, people who have a consistent ability to doom loop, which is what I describe this negative thinking as, it's not that easy just to switch your thoughts, switch your feelings, or switch your behaviors. But when you can, and you will be able to, when you can, that's all you need to do to change the outcome. All right, which is fabulous. But you can't do that until you've learned something else that needs to go on. So Melanie's just come in with 5,000. That was my question to you guys about how many thoughts go through the brain in 7 seconds. It's higher, much, much higher. I'll wait for a couple more to come through and then I will let you know. This may not be a surprise to many of you. Maybe it is a surprise to some of you, but this is common. This way of thinking is a common sign or symptom of imposter syndrome. And the thing is with imposter syndrome, we don't like to talk about it. Shh, don't tell anyone I've got it. We disguise it. We hide from it because it must mean that we're incompetent. All right. The answer is it doesn't mean that at all. But I just want to describe a few things about imposter syndrome before we move on so that you are clear about what it is and what it isn't. And before I do that, I'm just going to tell you the answers. We've got some answers coming in. It's actually 350,000. So the closest so far is Karen. Oh no, we've got Yvonne with 120,000. So it's a huge amount of thoughts going through our brain. So imagine if you were consciously aware of all those, you'd be going bananas. So that's why only 10 to 20% of those are consciously thought about. Anyway, let's move on back to imposter syndrome. Let's just get some myths straight, shall we? Because there is a lot of talk about this, and there's a lot of reasons why people don't want to admit that they've got it, or that they're suffering with self-limiting beliefs, or they are thinking negative thoughts, because it must mean there's something wrong with them. But it doesn't. And this is also what it doesn't mean. It does not mean we are in a learning mode. It does not mean that we care. All right. There's humble and there's humble plus. It means we're growing. No, it doesn't. It means we're stuck. It does not make you more creative. Anybody that knows how the brain works will know that if your brain is busy doing something else, worrying, fretting, slowing down, you cannot be as creative. It makes us work harder. No, it doesn't. It's why I'm successful. No, it isn't. It's very common in successful people, but it's not why they're successful. They've managed success without, irrespective of it. And the final one is you can get rid of it completely. That answer is not true. You cannot get rid of it completely. If you've been thinking a certain way and you've created neurological pathways in your brain that are really linked to this negative thinking, you cannot just switch it off, but you can make it less and less attractive to go to those thoughts and create new neurological pathways in your brain, like motorways, for you to drive down instead of the one you were driving down before. Okay. Here's some facts for you that are true. This is good. It does affect men and women. So if you're having negative thoughts, it's not because you're a woman, it's not because you're a man. It does disproportionately impact minority groups and the most successful people. So we'd assume that successful people would feel less of this the more success they get. But it's amazing, as you get closer and closer to the top in your business and you get to MD and CEO and CFO and everything else, it gets worse because you've got more responsibility. People are expecting more from you, but you daren't say anything because then that would mean you're incompetent. It doesn't, obviously. It reduces our efficiency. It does increase costs because as we slow down and we trust ourselves less, the costs go up to do things. It takes longer. Over 70% of us will experience this in our lives. You know, we're in good company. And it increases with success, I've already said, and it affects our health. Here's the thing I want you to really, really remember: whether you're having negative thoughts, or you suffer with self-doubt, or you're impacted by anything related to imposter syndrome, it is absolutely nothing to do with competence. You are already successful, you are already competent, you have the skills. What you don't have is the belief in yourself that those skills were, achieved by you. That's it. It's your interpretation of your competence that needs help, not your competence at all. It's everything to do with confidence and self-belief. There are many of us, many famous people, and I hold my hand up as someone who has had and now controls imposter syndrome, who have this really, really famous people like Albert Einstein. I love his description of this. He talks about seeing himself as an involuntary swindler, and that's pretty much what it feels like. So he sees it as an exaggerated esteem in his life work. People who feel like this don't know or believe the good that they've done and the value that they've got. And the involuntary swindler side of things is just a great way to describe that. So you're in good company if you feel like that, and there's many more people around. How do we get this? How does this negative self-talk start? It could be intrinsic. I'm born and bred in the pharmaceutical industry, so I see things medically. And we talk about chronic or acute conditions. So for those of you who are coming in from the pharmaceutical industry, this should land beautifully. But it just means if it's in you and it's always been in you, it's come from a very, very early age, and it's probably been embedded and reinforced by your own self-thinking. And it'll be caused by something, an event that's happened to you several times, once maybe, at a younger age. Or it could be extrinsic. It could be an acute thing. Now, very few people never, ever have self-doubt. Very few. It's incredibly rare never to have it. But we have one tank of energy, we have one tank of resilience. So if the culture that you're in, the environment that you're in, or maybe something's happened to you like redundancy, you are having withdrawals on this tank, this resource all the time anyway. So even the most resilient of us can suddenly start to feel very, very uncomfortable and a bit like, they don't belong, and I shouldn't be here, and I'm not going to get this, and it won't work, and I shouldn't, and I couldn't. So it can be as a result of something you've done all your life. It could be that it's brand new to you and it's just started to happen. Let's face it. Since the pandemic, we've all been having withdrawals on our emotional bank account and feeling worn down. Now there's what else is going on with the war, and you name it, there's something going on in our world. It's going to have an impact on us. So, and we can't ignore that, especially if you're working within an organization. It isn't just one or two people that are feeling this. Lots of people are feeling like this. And it does impact our ability to show up, stay present, be in the moment, and do the best work that we can do. We'll still do great work, but could it be better? The mind is everything. What do you think you become? This Socrates knew a thing or two, I reckon, so we should listen to him. The mind is everything. What is fascinating is when I work with people is they've convinced themselves for so long that they can't do this, they shouldn't do that, this won't work, this won't happen, that it becomes their truth. And then when we break that down and we create a new truth of what is possible, that becomes true as well, and they're gobsmacked. They're like, well, how did that happen? It happens because you decided to believe it. If you believe you can't, you won't. If you believe you can, you've at least got a chance. All right. So be careful what you're feeding your mind. I'm a strong believer that everything is possible within reason if we put our mind to it. Now, my son always challenges me on this. He's 14 and he knows everything. And he always says to me, that's not true, Mom, because you can't build a house in 5 days. I say yet. You can't build a house in 5 days yet. But the point is within reason, if you want something, you can make it happen. And many of us are sitting back not getting what we want and deserve because we're holding ourselves back. Okay, having worked with a lot of people over the last 7 years, having worked in the area of professional improvement for many, many years longer than that, one of the common themes, actually there's 3 common themes that run under this negative self-talk. The first one is people feel like a fraud. I've already talked about the involuntary swindler from Albert Einstein. This is what we're talking about. And the problem with this is if you feel like a fraud, you are not able to show up and shine as someone, the same way as someone who doesn't feel like a fraud, which immediately puts you on the back step. Right? It doesn't stop you from getting what you want and doing what you want necessarily, but it slows it right down and people might surpass you, which is really frustrating. Or you don't worry about people surpassing you, just are fed up with being stuck where you are. I recently set up a quiz called Have I Got Imposter Syndrome, of which over 200 people have taken it. And I just want to share some results with you on that are relevant to this. Half of those people, not all of them have imposter syndrome or possibly have imposter syndrome. Half of them felt like a fraud and worry they'll be found out. So it's quite a common thing for 1 in 2 of us, right? I know I felt it. And something else which was really interesting is people believed if they had greater self-confidence, they'd have more success than they're having right now. It's not rocket science. If we didn't feel smaller, more useless, less valued than somebody else, we'd be having more success because people will buy into us more. The second thing that is really common for people with who are having these negative self-talk going on is their ability to procrastinate. And it really is a thief of time. It can take hours out of your week. And not only does it take time out of your week, it zaps your energy, it raises your stress level, which means you can't turn up and be in the moment at work. Your head is in a threat state. It can slow you down so much that you do nothing, which isn't great, or it can slow you down so much that you miss out on an opportunity. Okay, so if that's for you, maybe you miss out on a job, maybe you miss out on a promotion, maybe you miss out on some bonus. But what if you're in an organization and you contribute at your level to the performance of that organization, and your decision or lack of decision causes the company to miss out? Right now we cannot afford to make a mistake. But we can afford to take risks that are well thought out and done with a high level of trust behind that decision. Yes, just another result from the imposter syndrome quiz is that 71% of people worry about making mistakes and getting things wrong. So again, quite common. And only 27% of us make quick decisions and worry little about the outcomes. So the rest of us are having a wild time worrying about things, slowing down, not making decisions. And it can feel, I'm being flippant, but actually it can be really, really difficult. One of my clients a little while ago, a young lady, age 40-ish, so stressed about having to make a big decision, which we worked on, and she did make the decision. It had made her so ill, she'd ended up on beta blockers, a heart drug for hypertension, raised blood pressure. Which, imagine what happens when she's no longer feeling the tension because of this thing she can't decide on. Everything starts to get better. It can make people very, very poorly. So it's not something to just ignore. And the third biggest problem is this lack of fulfillment. People say, oh, you can't expect to be happy every day. No, you can't. Absolutely can't. Life can be really crappy sometimes. But you also don't need to accept to be unhappy every day and go through the motions. So if you're in a job you don't enjoy, if you're running a company that you don't want to run anymore, if you're leading a team of people and you don't want to be doing that anymore, but you feel stuck because you should, and it's, you get stuck in this rut, if you're not turning up feeling as fulfilled as you could be and enjoying it, fulfillment impacts productivity, and productivity impacts our results. So they may all seem like little tiny things, but it really makes a difference when you start adding them up all together. 86% of people who took part of the survey said they were not feeling fulfilled in their life and were not living the dream and not doing what they really wanted to do, which is really sad. And I think we've all realized recently, since COVID, that our mortality is real and we're not going to live forever. And actually it can be taken away from us quite quickly. I know it had an impact on me and many of the people that I work with and are friends with. So I think people have realized that life is short, and if we're going to do something, let's do it. Let's get on with it. And first of all, recognize that you're not getting what you want. That's the first thing. And then we need to start doing something about it. So for those of you who had a pen and paper or who are really down with kids and had an iPad, and you wrote down your 1, 2, or 3 things that you say to yourself, I would now like you to draw a snowy mountain with a nice peak at the top. I said to you earlier that these feelings are not about competence, they are about confidence. And I love this picture because it just describes it beautifully. You are able to climb the mountain. You can see the peak. You know it's there. Maybe you don't know it's there yet. Actually, not everyone knows what the peak is. But you're on your way there. But people who don't deal with this never, ever, or rarely reach their peak. And if they do, they don't stay there often enough. And that can be frustrating in itself. People who learn to sort this out can climb right to the top with the help and support and a little bit of pushing sometimes. So on your piece of paper, draw your mountain. 0 is at the base, you're at base camp. 10 is you're at your peak. Where are you on that right now? Are you a 3? If you feel like telling me and sharing that in the group, let us know. Maybe you're a 10. Maybe you've just come to see if there's any more you can do. Maybe you've reached your peak, but actually you're just not enjoying it. That can happen too. So where are you on that journey? Because if you're not at your peak as an individual, there's possibly going to be regrets and frustration. And if you're not there as an organization because the culture doesn't allow it, what is that going to do to your business results? Quite a bit. It's going to do quite a bit and could make quite a difference. About 3 to 4. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So there's some people coming in with where they are on their mountain. About a 4, 5. Cool. Good for you. Yeah. And do you know what? It doesn't matter where you are now. Someone's 21 out of 2. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe that's a gradient. But anyway, it doesn't matter where you are. What matters is you now know what you're saying to yourself. You now know you don't feel that you're at your peak. You probably knew that already. But what I'm doing today is helping you decide whether you want to. Is this a problem you want to solve? Because it might not be. Maybe you're happy at 4 or 5. The people I work with aren't. I don't work with people who are happy to just stay with the status quo. I work with people who are really ready to go for it. Okay. So the impact I've talked about, or touched on this a little bit, but the impact is health-wise is the biggest one. Physical and emotional health. It's amazing how many people feel pain when they're not happy. And you can never put your finger on where it's come from. You'll see a doctor, you don't know where it's come from, just unidentified pain. I have a friend of mine who has really bad asthma, and she's fine a lot of the time. She always has 1 or 2 bad episodes a year. But when she was in a really bad place and imposter syndrome had taken control of her and she didn't feel she could get out of this horrible situation she was in, when she got her chest infection for the year, it lasted way longer than it ever had done before. Your body's running on a deficit. It needs the energy, it needs the happiness, the joy to get it better. Emotionally, it's not a mental health issue at all. If it does lead into a mental health issue, that's a different conversation altogether and not my arena whatsoever. But it does affect your mental well-being. Now it's just you swell at the top and I'm starting to climb again. Oh, I'd love to hear what that's about, Marek. So yeah, it can affect your emotional well-being. If your tension levels are high, your anxiety levels are high, your cognitive function, your ability to be creative, to problem solve, be more emotionally self-aware, have emotional self-control, rather important for you leaders out there, it all gets diminished. And some of you will display that in different ways. I'm not going to talk about the types of imposter syndrome today, but there are different levels. And what you see as a classic imposter syndrome type example may not be what you think it is. So, but we're not going there today. Socially, it can affect us as well. It can make us feel less like socializing. It can affect our relationships with our families and friends because we get so fed up with ourselves, with this negative yada yada going on. We become a bit of a pain in the butt to be with. And that can be hard over time, however forgiving we are as a spouse or a friend or a loved one or a child or a mother or a father. It can be really wearing. It does affect us professionally. We tend not to go as far as we could have done if we don't believe that we can. This affects us financially as well, in that we miss out on opportunities and business and all sorts of things that could have come our way because the door's closed and we've closed that door. I want to make it really miserable, but the truth is it can be really quite impactful to people's lives. And what frustrates me is the fact that people will tell you it doesn't exist. Negative self-talk, you should just be able to switch it off. Hello, I mean, I've had it. I know you can't just switch it off. I know there's some work that needs to be done to do that. So if you are hearing that, don't worry, stick with me. I know where you're coming from. I know what's happening. I've met, it isn't just about you. It's a ripple effect what happens here. Now, no man is an island entire of itself. It's a great quote from John Donne. Every man, stroke woman, stroke whatever, doesn't matter, is a piece of the continent. Whoever you are you're like a little drop in the ocean, and your ripple effect affects everybody. One of the clients that I've been working with for a little while now didn't realize how his lack of self-belief, his imposter syndrome, was affecting all of his team and all of their outcomes. It was massive. And when he could take control of it and do something different, it changed what was happening with them as well. As leaders, we need to be feeling really confident, but not overconfident. We don't want an ego. We don't want narcissists. There's a fine line in between the two. And just to be clear about this, the business impact, if you're here from an organizational point of view, is when people aren't feeling as good, there are higher levels of absenteeism, presenteeism. The new one, quiet quitting, it's not new. It's been around forever. It's just a nice, funky name now. And attrition rates go up. And this costs 378 to 469 billion across Europe in a year, just 1 year. It's costing businesses a fortune. So if you are looking at right now, how are we going to make marginal gains? It's beyond marginal, but how are we going to make marginal gains? You don't want to be looking at upskilling people with more tools. Maybe you do, maybe they need them. But if their mindset isn't right, if they're not feeling confident and psychologically safe to act in a confident way in your environment, you're really missing out on an opportunity to beat your competition and to save money and to make people happier, healthier, and all the rest of it. Now, of course, you could do this. A lot of people who procrastinate for a living and have negative self-thought do this a lot. It's fine. We don't have to change anything. Something magical will just happen. It won't, but that's fine. Plenty of people will stay in that zone. And those people in those organizations tend not to go very far, but also the organizations tend not to thrive as well. Or you could do something about it. So there are things that you can do. The first thing you can do is to learn how to create or develop this unshakable belief, but without the ego. This is what I describe in my 5 levels of imposter syndrome, the utopic state. It's not I don't have any. It's I have a low level. I have a healthy level that doesn't stop me from doing what I want to do. But I am so confident in myself and that I could do it, that people are just automatically attracted to me. People trust me, I trust myself. It's an amazing state to be in. And even if you could be there 10% more of the time, 20, 30, 40, imagine what that would feel like not to be thinking they're better than me, they should go for that job, I won't bother. It does make a huge difference. The second solution is to be able to make better, faster decisions without fear. How do we do that? The only way to do that is to understand why we're making those decisions in the first place, which is a bit of deep work. What's going on? Where are these thoughts? Put my teeth back in. Where are these thoughts coming from? And why am I scared of them? Because until you can tell your chimp, the limbic brain, the emotional center in your brain, that it's okay and really convince it it's okay, you're fighting a losing battle. But when you can speed up, worry less, you feel better. It's a nice place to be. And the third one is to feel more fulfilled and in control of your life. People generally don't feel very fulfilled when they aren't achieving what they want to achieve and they feel like they're missing out on life. You have more control over that than you think. If you want something, if you want to change something, if you want to go somewhere, be with somebody, do something else, take control. Stop giving away your power in the, oh, it's not fair, I'll just have negative self-talk and let that carry on. You're your own worst enemy. We all are. To feel more fulfilled, plan what you really want. Go wild, get brave, write it down, imagine it, feel it, see it. And then your brain can start to at least see the possibilities of it happening, and you'll be amazed what happens. Then you start feeling more filled. Now, if you're feeling more fulfilled, it feels incredible. It feels like you're unshackled. I remember someone describing this to me a couple of years ago. We'd done some work together. I just feel like I'm free. I've broken free of the chains of self-doubt and this negative chatter that's going on. It's described as feeling empowered and liberated, but you're in control. You're not controlling, you're not egotistical, you're just in control of you. And quite frankly, that makes you magnetic. It's incredible what happens. Doors start to open, people start to come to you, people want to employ you, they want to give you more money. One of my clients went from earning £6,000 a month to £25,000 to £30,000 a month purely by changing the mindset. You know, it makes a massive difference to what we're capable of, and it makes life a lot more fun. Just to let you know what that feels like, I'm going to let you read this. Well, I'll read it to you. But one of my clients who's just finished on the program I'm just going to tell you about, he's an MD in aerospace, very senior, very capable guy, suffered really badly with imposter type thinking. He now sleeps like a log. He wakes up with more energy. He's no longer weighed down by the fear of failure and self-doubt. Boom, job done. Other thing is also managed to remove this lifelong fear, which has been with him for years. And I found out later on that was really stopping him sleeping. And if you're not sleeping as well, you can't think as straight, and it affects everything. So great result for him. And he's one of many. How do we do that? So over the last 2.5 years, I've been putting together what I do, and I've created a unique combination, 5 steps, which I've called the Eagle Development Program. It's a 6-module program, but it takes you through 5 stages. And I'm going to give you something in the first stage, what I want you to start doing yourself. Or if you know someone who is struggling with these self-deprecating thoughts, you can help them by getting them to do this as well. So you've thought about the 3 or maybe 1, 2 or 3 things that you say to yourself that keep you small and make you feel lesser. Now what I want you to do is think about how many times a day does that happen. Part of the program is creating your own little poll. You tally how often a day it's happening. This really surprises people, how often they put themselves down, how often they say something negative about themselves, to others. Some people, it was like 50, 60 times a day. Now, what I want you to do with this is do this for a few days and notice how often it happens, because until you can appreciate how often you're doing it, you can't appreciate whether it's a problem you want to solve, and you can just keep ignoring it. Once we've shined a light on that, we can start then looking at, what else is going on, who's it's impacting. But create your tally. This is your new playground. Wherever you're getting triggered, that's the next thing, is how often am I doing it? What's triggering me? That'll be a playground that you go into to practice the rest of the stuff, all right? So first stage is evaluation. It's a bit more than that, but I've given you an overview of the first bit because I want you to be able to go away with one thing you can do. And then you analyze what's going on. So the impact is on you, on everybody else. We need to understand the impact that we're having on people, on our organization. And then we can start looking at generating a new way of being, doing, saying, feeling. Then we've got to put learning into action. And this is where you need to have a vision of what you want to achieve in the future. What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't care how old you are. It doesn't matter whether you're 50 or 90. We all have, well, maybe not 90. I don't know. But the point is, what is your vision of the future? If you don't have that, you are just like a ship in the wind going backwards and forwards. How can you feel fulfilled if you feel like that? And the final stage of that is evolving and helping people be magnetized to you, be drawn to you by saying, showing and doing the right things in the right way that isn't show-offy and it's comfortable to you. Underneath all of that, there is all the information about change, how your brain works. It's just packed full. So How does that work? There are some specifics to this program. It is a structured learning program for the first 3 months. We meet together every 2 weeks. There is a virtual open access course. So for people that want to grow themselves and they don't want to come through their organizations, that is open. That's an open access course and you're with like-minded people. Or it can be done virtually or face-to-face in-house. It's highly interactive. It's all based on real life, your real life stories and examples, and the camaraderie and accountability are fabulous. It really helps everyone keep going, stay on track and make the changes they want to make. And that progress is tracked as we go throughout the course. You then get access to me for the rest of the year. So for another 8 months, who wouldn't want that? Where you get group coaching and mentoring via a once monthly virtual session where we can help turn that learning into reality. Learning, it's one thing, turning it into reality is another thing. The great thing about these coaching sessions as well is the opportunity to connect, to support each other, to teach back a little bit and to evolve into the person that you really want to be and deserve to be. So imagine that. If you could have a life where you worry less or where your organization is worrying less, achieving more and exceeding those expectations, it is a life without self-limits. It is literally just ourselves removing the barriers. And when we can do that, we can become high performing consistently or more of the time. And we can create cultures where everyone can thrive. Very quickly, because I'm just conscious of time, but I want you to know that I have imposter, sound like an alcoholic. I have imposter syndrome. I hold my hand up. I'm not an alcoholic, but I discovered I had imposter syndrome from the age of 7 when I started doing some work on myself. But at the age of 7, I went to an all-girls school. It was majority Christian faith, and there were 12 Jews, of which I was one. So the 12 Jews every morning used to get taken, shepherded off into a little classroom on their own and do Jewish stuff, Jewish prayers. And then we'd be paraded back into the main room where everyone else was in there, a couple of hundred girls having their assembly. And they'd all, every day, I mean, they knew what we were doing. They'd turn and they'd stare and they'd look at us like we were a little bit dirty. At least that was my perception. And we'd sit in our own little Jewish group. And I knew from that day on that it wasn't good to be different. And I know that affected everything throughout my career, throughout my life, my relationships, how I showed up at work, until I dealt with it. And I dealt with it one day when I moved into the IT industry, where everything I'd ever felt bad about myself came to a fore. I was treated appallingly. The leaders there were horrendous. I hope they watch this. It made me ill. I had anxiety, but I got help. I didn't have a job to go to, but after having help and learning about how my brain was working, I went in and handed in my notice, and I've never felt more in control, more proud of myself, and more certain that I could do whatever I wanted to do than that moment. And that was about 20 years ago. And I say I didn't have a job to go to. It was scary, but I did it. And I can track back now to that day to where I am now. And the reason I do what I do is because I want to help people who were like me and didn't know there was another way, because you can have a better life now. But I also want to help organizations and all of their leaders be able to have this unshakable self-belief without the ego, without being too worried, and create a safe place where all of their employees can thrive as well. Little things that have happened to us in the past can have a big effect, and they can be good or bad. But here's the thing: let's focus on the positive. If we change one little thing, lots of other things start changing. So it doesn't have to be huge. There's just lots of little steps we can take to make things different for us. And the limitations are only in our mind, and it's how we use our mind that becomes interesting. If we use our imagination, our possibilities do become limitless. And it is fascinating to watch people be constantly surprised that once they have broken free of these shackles, how many things start coming their way, and they're gobsmacked. And it's just because they allowed it to start happening, to be a possibility, and for their dreams to be coming true. One final thing I'd like to share with you is just to put this into context for you. I was really lucky to work with this amazing human. Andrea White. When she met me, she was a former shell of what she is now. And within 6 months, something very different was happening. She is neurodiverse, didn't want to tell anyone. She'd been treated appallingly all her life through her career. She didn't trust herself. She didn't want to run her own business. She, everything was negative, negative. The work we did together changed everything for her. And I'm not going to read this because it makes my eyes leak when I read this, but I just want you to know that she did something she would never have been able to do before, was to go to an awards ceremony, get dressed up, so not her, up against 2 other women. But it's what I love is the fact that I'm even there tonight. That's what it was for her. She could go, she was there, she'd been recognized for the amazing human that she is. And yes, she thanked me. And it's lovely, and it makes my heart warm that I can help people do that. But I'm so proud of her for what she's done. And, she's just an incredible powerhouse. And yeah, what a woman. So that is possible. And if you would like that too, then I would love to help you. You can book right now. Clever little scanny thing for us old people here. Get your phone, get your code scanner out. If you would like to book in and talk about how I can help you or your organization, maybe either as one-to-one or group coaching sessions or as a speaker engagement, you are very, very welcome to book in for a coaching discovery action session. They are for senior leaders, C-suite executives, successful entrepreneurs and business owners, and L&D leads, all right? And the reason I do that is because I'm just limited on time. If you're outside of that category, but you'd still like help, Lorraine is now popping, I think she's already doing it. She's popping in links. So if you can't use the scanny thing, there's a link there. You can go and book straight away, and you can do that right now. My calendar is limited. So please, 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 if you want to do that, do it as soon as you can so you get a space and time that suits you. If you can't get a space or time that suits you, please contact Lorraine. Lorraine will put her email address in just a moment in the chat as well. And she will help you find a space and a time that works for you. If you're interested in the Eagle Development Program, there are a couple of spaces remaining on the upcoming run in November, and otherwise we're going into January. Now, for those of you who haven't booked yet and thinking, oh, I'll wait, just be careful. And the thing is, when we are master procrastinators and we're full of negative thoughts and self-doubt, then little brain gremlins come in going, oh no, I mustn't book an appointment because I don't want to change anything. Just beware. Why are you not booking? Why are you not making this decision? Is it because it's not right for you? Brilliant. Are you sure? And if it is right for you, but you're not booking for another reason, do it anyway. I'm dead friendly. And in that session, what we will do is we will look at where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's the gap? And I will give you some coaching around that. And if that's all you ever do, you'll have had half an hour's coaching with me. And that might be just enough to start changing everything. If you haven't taken the Imposter Syndrome quiz yet, please do. There's another scanny code there. So you can scan on that and take the Imposter Syndrome quiz. And you will get a link to that coming up from Lorraine in a minute as well, if you're not into scanning. So have a go at that and see where you come out. There'll be some interesting information in that, if nothing else. So see what you think when you do that. There's just 16 questions on there. It takes about 2 minutes. And I will stop now and say it's been a pleasure. And I look forward to meeting those of you who have booked in, those of you who are about to book in, and open up to any questions for the next 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, then please pop them into the chat now. If you think, actually, no, I'm done, I'm cooked, Sarah, I've had enough, I can't take any more, say goodbye. Thank you for coming. It's been a real pleasure to have you here. I hope you've enjoyed it and found something useful from today. And I will just scroll back through the other questions to see if there's anything that I can answer. Okay, so I'm just seeing some comments actually rather than questions at the moment, but I can see one from Andrew Hill here. For decades at least, lack of open conversation made us feel alone in this, exacerbating the effects. I'm glad the conversation is more open. Yeah, me too. There's more and more of us talking about it, and we need to be more open and stop making people feel bad for it. It's just, what's the point? and stop making ourselves feel bad for it. Zoe said, getting help is the hardest thing. Reaching for the coaching is the key. Yeah, I mean, coaching, some sort of support network. Start by reading a book if you're terrified. You can read mine at the end of January. Small actions have a big impact. Yes, goodbye. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Great session. Thank you, Zoe. Right, Karen has asked, is imposter syndrome linked with anxiety? Good question. Yes. Does one cause the other? I'm not going to go there because I'm not a psychologist, but I do know from personal experience and from my clients that people with severe imposter syndrome feel more anxious than people that don't. They have higher tension levels. So I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Thank you, Manoj. Thank you for coming. A few people saying goodbye. Right, if there are no other questions, I will bid you farewell. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me. Thanks, Jay. And you can find me on LinkedIn. If we're not connected yet, send me a connection request. Let's get connected. I talk about this a lot and leadership skills and stuff. So yeah, you should find tons of useful information on there. And I look forward to seeing some of you very, very soon. Thank you for coming. Have a good rest of your day. And I will see you very, very soon.